Hello everyone, it's Ant Hazuki here, back with a review of Ancestors Legacy, which has finally got a console release for PS4 and Xbox One. Now, Ancestors Legacy is a historical based real-time strategy game set in the Middle Ages. You'll take command of one of four nations, the Vikings, the Anglo-Saxons, Germans or Slavs, and find yourself raiding, conquering and pillaging your way through Europe in four separate campaigns and time periods. Developed by Destructive Creations and released last year on PC to positive reviews, the long-promised console port to PS4 and Xbox One has finally arrived by the way of porters Slipgate Ironworks. Review code was provided by the publishers, and as always my views are my own. Coming in at €35, £40 or $40, and releasing today on the 13th of August, the key question is, have they managed to deliver on the difficult proposition of having a satisfying RTS on consoles, and what has been compromised to get it to work? Whilst you're here, I always appreciate a like and subscribe, it genuinely helps me continue to grow this channel. So let's tackle the compromise question first. Well, surprisingly, this is an uncompromising experience. Unlike Halo Wars 1 and 2, which I really do like by the way, nothing here has been dumbed down or altered in its transition to console. This is the full fat experience of its PC counterpart, with all the single player campaign content as well as the online multiplayer battles that pitch you in either PvE or PvP on dedicated servers. The game also fully supports the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, enabling you to select between three different visual options. You can have, if you so desire, the 1080p 30 frames per second that the base console has, or switch it up to 1080p 60 frames per second or 4K at 30 frames per second. The game looks fantastic, with great animations and huge environments that ran smoothly during gameplay segments. Indeed, the only issues I've seen so far were frame drops during the lovely animated cutscenes that take place before each mission, and certainly nothing that can't be resolved with a patch. Some frame drops do occur during gameplay, but thankfully this only occurs when the game autosaves, but I've not found it especially jarring. Of course, when talking about any RTS on consoles, the key thing to focus on is the controls and how well they translate to a control pad. Well, the developer has claimed that these controls have been tested over a 2-year period, and I have to say it shows, as they're really rather good, but it will take you some time getting used to them. Don't expect to simply load this game up, jump into a skirmish and expect a good time. Instead, what the game does is it gradually feeds you the controls as you go through each level, building up complexity as you go. Holding down L2 and then pressing square twice to select all units might sound crazy to you, but very quickly it actually becomes second nature. The control sticks also move around the map at a pleasing speed, not too fast, not too sluggish. It's certainly not going to beat a mouse and keyboard combo, but it does work better than you might expect. Now, speaking of a mouse and keyboard, this is something I would expect the game to support on consoles, but I currently don't have any info and not had the opportunity to try it during the course of this review. But if anyone wants to confirm in the comments section below, it would be much appreciated. When you load up the game, you'll start your journey with the Vikings, and the best way of describing it from a gameplay perspective is that it's certainly a traditional RTS, focusing on combat and actually reminding me of the sublime company of heroes. You'll find yourself taking charge of a variety of units with their own strengths and weaknesses, and mirrors the styles of their respective nations. You'll have archers, spearmen, sword and shield guys, axemen, cavalry, and the combat is essentially a rock, paper, scissors approach. For example, axemen are good against sword and shield guys, spearmen are great against cavalry, cavalry are great against axemen, etc, etc. It's not as simple as just chucking units at each other. You have to know when and where to attack as well, using your environment to launch surprise attack, sticking your units in long grass for example, or attacking from the rear or flanks to gain an advantage on any skirmish. Now, units are grouped into squads, and the amount you can control is capped at 10, which is the same as the PC version. As you gauge in battles, squads gain experience and eventually level up, increasing their abilities and allowing for a variety of upgrades that have their own strengths and weaknesses. Soldiers, for example, get plate armour and become super resistant when being attacked from the front, but with greater cost to their speed. Like Halo Wars, each nation also gets their own hero unit. As you might expect, hero units are essentially their own squads. They're super powerful with their own unique abilities exclusive to them, and they can easily take down other enemy squads, with the disadvantage however of mission failure if they're killed. Thankfully the game features regular autosaves and allows you to save manually, avoiding frustrations when you screw up on enemy approaches. So what about base building, you may ask? Well, villages act as your bases, and they usually are the main objective to capture from the enemy on each mission. They allow you to collect resources and to heal your units. So with those resources you can do the standard RTS stuff like building new units and upgrading your technology. However, one key thing to note is you cannot place your bases. You capture and hold them at certain points on the map. Whilst this approach may be a little disappointing on PC, this actually is a good advantage on console, allowing you to focus on the combat elements, which is this game's key strength. Another key strength here is that it has 4 unique campaigns, each set in its own time period, and there's a great variety of missions, everything from pillaging, rescuing your comrades in night raids, good old-fashioned conquering. For example, you start off with the Vikings campaign and you control the Norseman raid at Linden's farm in 793 AD, which officially brought in the beginning of the Viking Age, and the game continues in the same vein, covering key periods of the Anglo-Saxons, the Germanic Holy Roman Empire, and the Slavs. If you're interested in this particular historical period, you'll find a lot to like here. There are 40 missions in total, with many hours of content, and also DLC campaigns featuring Saladin on the way. My only real complaint about the entire experience surround the control of the units and the general unit AI. Once you engage units or enemy combatants in combat, they will simply sit there and finish the job, even if they're losing, and you can't just highlight the units and just send them away from battle either. You actually specifically have to select the retreat command to get them to disengage from the enemy. And in the heat of the battle with a lot going on, this extra step can prove fatal, especially if you want to break up specific squads to go and deal with a flanking attack, for example. Outside of the extensive and engaging campaign, there is actually a comprehensive multiplayer component, and as mentioned previously, you can play it in either player versus enemy or player versus player scenarios on dedicated servers. As you might expect, the multiplayer experience is pretty dead pre-release, but I expect this to fully change now the game is out. But from the few matches I did manage to play, the game seemed to run absolutely fine, which is great. Overall, I am really impressed with Ancestors Legacy. I admit I went into this experience with trepidation, as I've never really got on with RTSs on console before, but this is a mighty fine experience and one I can wholeheartedly recommend. Let me know if you have any comments or questions about the game, and I'll be happy to answer in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.